The Bible is a living word that reads us as we read it. It's a person, a voice that proves that time is not linear, as one sentence can confirm the past, guide the present, and declare the future. You are here. I am here. He is here. We are here right now. In the tomorrow of yesterday and in the yesterday of tomorrow, I thank you for joining today. So we're back. Thank you so much for joining once again. In our last episode, we talked about how Joshua, prior to passing away, spoke to the Israelites and reminded them of the promises of God, the goodness of God, the instructions of God, and the importance of serving God, the importance of driving out the people of the land when they went to conquer it so as not to get caught up in their customs, which were evil customs. These people did not serve the same God, they served idol gods. So Joshua warned the Israelites against getting too comfortable around these people because he knew how important it was for the Israelites to stay locked into the Lord. So Joshua presented this decision to the people, and he let them know you have your free will. You get to choose. So choose today who it is that you're going to serve. Make your decision. If you're going to serve idol gods, let it be known. If you are going to serve the one true God, Yahweh, let that be known too. So all the people of Israel were like, yeah, of course we're serving God. Like, don't even insult us by thinking we would do anything other than that. And God has been too good to us. And yada, 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 yada. And anyhow, before you know it, Joshua went on. He put in his 110 years of living and he went on to rest. And the Israelites went on to conquer the land that was not yet conquered. And when they did, one thing that we see is that they did not completely drive out the people of the land. And this was a problem because they made room for the enemy. And when you make room for the enemy, the trouble with making room for the enemy is that he will make trouble for you. And before you know it, the Israelites turned their back on God. They abandoned the Lord. They started worshiping idol gods. They were intermarrying with them. They were doing all the things that the people of the land were doing because they had their influence around them because they didn't do what they were instructed to do. The Lord spoke to the Israelite people and he told them, yo, I held up my end of the bargain. I did what I said I was going to do when I entered into a covenant with you. You, on the other hand, y'all out here tripping. You serving gods. I told you to knock down their altars and you worshiping them. You bowing your knee to something that you could create with your own hands. So as a result of the people turning their backs on God, abandoning him, the Lord turned them over to their enemies. Essentially, he's like, okay, I'm going to give you over to the things that you act like you want to do. And so he removed like this fence, this barrier of grace and protection that was around them. And he let the enemies attack them. A lot of us would read the story or listen to the story and be like, how could the Israelites, how could they do that? Like, worship other gods. Why didn't they just drive the people out of the land? How could they bow their knees to any God other than the God that has been there for them, been rocking with them, been protecting them, providing for them, all this other stuff? But if we're honest with ourselves, in so many ways, we are guilty of doing the same thing. We will get caught up with people, places, and things that are not of God. And when I say not of God, I'm not saying that all things not of God are dark and like mystical and, are dressed up as evil. There are some things that are just outside of the will. It's like, no, I did not tell you to take that job. No, I did not tell you to be in a relationship with this person, whether it is romantically, whether it is a friendship, whatever that looks like. When we do not obey the instructions of God, we set ourselves up. We are more prone to, we're vulnerable to to traps and attacks of the enemy that we don't even know are present. But God is merciful, and we see his mercy a lot in the book of Judges. In the book of Judges, we're going to see this pattern that the Israelites find themselves in. So the pattern that we see is that the Israelites do evil. The Lord gives them up to the enemy. The people cry out to God for help. Then the Lord sends a rescuer that is otherwise known as a judge. Now, this is not a judicial judge. This is a military leader that guides the Israelites into battle against these other nations or other people, other kings, and ultimately leads them into victory and a time of rest or time of peace. And so after the judge has been raised up, then things are good. It's peaceful after they have victory. And then when the judge ends up passing away, the cycle continues. There's a loop, and you see that the people of Israel start doing evil all over again. And then the Lord hands them over to the enemy, and then the people cry out for help. And then the Lord sends a rescuer, and so on and so forth. So that's what we're going to see a lot of in the book of Judges. Now, mind you, you have the Bible. So I'm not going to recap every single story, but I will touch on some of them that I thought were either fun or significant or, something that we can glean from. So the Israelites, again, they're doing evil. So the Lord hands them over to the king of Moab, King Eglon. And Moab gained control of the Israelites, and he teamed up with the Ammonites and the Amalekites, and they ended up taking possession of Jericho. Yes, this is the same Jericho that in a few episodes back we talked about. The Israelites marched around this town. 7 days they marched around at a total of 13 times. And then they blew the trumpets, and then the people released this shout. And then by the power of God, the walls of Jericho came tumbling down, and the Israelites went in and they conquered the town and they defeated the Jerichoans, and there was great victory. God gave that town to them. But they let it slip through their fingertips because they made poor decisions to make allowances for the enemy to set traps that they fell into. And that's what happens with the Israelites right here. And that's what happens in our lives too. There are a lot of things that God has gifted us with that we end up losing because we make poor decisions. But again, we serve a merciful God. So after the people of Israel were under oppression by King Eglon of Moab for 18 years, the people cried out for help. And the Lord, in his mercy, raised up a rescuer, a judge named Ehud. Now, Ehud, fun fact, was a left-handed guy. And he one day was like, yeah, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to handle it. So he's just sitting and he crafts this foot-long double-edged dagger and he straps it to his right hip. Ehud went to pay the tribute to King Eglon, just give him his monies, and he went in to pay the tribute for the people of Israel. And since he was there, he was like, this is a wonderful opportunity for me to do what it is I was raised up to do. So he got an audience with the king. It was one-on-one. And when he was alone with the king, took this foot-long double-edged dagger and drove it into the belly of the king. Now, here's something that's really interesting. The king was so overweight that the dagger, mind you, it was a foot long, was lost in his belly. He drove this foot-long dagger so deep into this man's belly, his robes just kind of flapped over it and it was hidden. Then Ehud just kind of goes on about his business. It took the servants a minute to even realize that the king wasn't just in the bathroom relieving himself. So when they did go in, they found that he was no longer with us. They found that he had been assassinated. And Ehud made his way back to the Israelites and were like, okay, cool. You. He gathered a troop of the Israelites and they went in and attacked the Moabites and conquered Moab. And then for 80 years, there was peace in the land. And then Ehud passed away. And if you remember the cycle, after the judge passed away, the next thing we know, the Israelites will fall right back into doing evil. And that's what happened. So the Israelites fell back into doing evil. And as a result, there's a consequence for our actions. So as a result of them doing evil, the Lord turned them over to King Jabin of Hazor. Now, King Jabin, he actually had an army commander who was a savage, and he was not to be messed with. His name was Sisera. This dude was so tough. He had 900 iron chariots. An iron chariot was the equivalent of a modern day bulletproof Chevy Suburban while you ride on a bike. So these dudes are rolling in bulletproof Chevy Suburbans, and the Israelites were hobbling around on their bicycles. And so they were very vulnerable. They were very out in the open. This was not somebody you wanted to go toe to toe with in battle. And King Jabin, he was ruthless. He had no mercy. He oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. And then the Israelites cried out to the Lord. And the Lord, knowing that time and time again, these Israelites, these people that he loves, these people that he chose, have been turning from him, have been choosing other people and other gods over him. But again, in his love and in his mercy and his willingness to give the Israelites yet another chance to choose him, he raised up a rescuer to get them out of the mess that they got themselves into. And we'll talk more about that in our next episode if the Lord blesses me to record another one. And I'm really excited to talk about it because the Lord used a woman, he used a drink of milk, and he used a piercing headache to make it happen. You'll understand why I giggled a little bit when we talk about it in our next episode, if the Lord blesses me to record another one. Until then, thank you again for listening. Bye for now.